It actually only takes 3 simple steps to set up your blog, and we are going to talk about those 3 steps in this video. Of course, we'll actually show you live going through those steps so that you could walk through with us in a later video when we get to the action plan for this section. But we wanted to talk about it and kind of explain the reasoning behind why we choose the companies that we do and what those 3 steps are in case you do ever need to choose a different company. So if you remember our examples of what the 3 main components are of a website, domain name, hosting, and your CMS, you'll see each 3 represented in these 3 steps. So the first step is to purchase your domain name. There are several companies that offer domain names, such as GoDaddy and Hover. We recommend Bluehost because that's who you'll be using as your hosting company, and this way you actually get that domain name free your first year. So really no risk on that domain name. It is something kind of like renting where you have to pay for it year after year. So you'll see below I have listed here what my domain name is year over year, which is about $12 a year, which is $1 a month. Really, really reasonable. Of course, domain names are going to cost differently depending on the name that you get and the company that you go with. Matter of fact, Adrienne purchased her domain name through Hover. Her original thought with purchasing a domain name away from her host is that if she ever wanted to leave Bluehost, purchasing it somewhere else could make it a little bit easier, which moving your hosting in general is a big ordeal. So hopefully you never have to come across that. If you do, need to check back to see if we have a course or blog post on it later. However, by going with Bluehost, you can actually condense all 3 of these steps really into just one simple step. And that's why we decided to fully endorse Bluehost with this course, because they just make it incredibly simple for you, the user. Once you go to bluehost.com and you purchase your domain name, it will also have you purchase your web hosting. Web hosting is going to cost you around $60 a year. And similar to domain names, there's actually a whole bunch of different companies that offer hosting. Liquid Web is one that's popular, also with bigger corporations. But with bigger hosting companies like that, you could end up paying several hundreds of dollars every year. But Bluehost, they're kind of like the Walmart of the sky, very reasonable, or Walmart of the internet, I should say. Well, Walmart's on the internet, so Walmart of hosting. There you go. And they make it really reasonable. It's only about $60 a year. Less actually, depending how many years you purchase. So they have a plan where the more years you purchase, the less the cost is. So if you purchase their 3-year plan, you actually can get your domain name and hosting for just $142.20, which is about $3.95 for hosting. And of course, you know, after the first year, you will have to pay for your domain name, which is just those $12 extra. But it really just boils down to about $60 a year going forward. Now, we just want to prepare you. Bluehost will try to upsell you tremendously. Go with the most basic plan. There's no need to get the bells or whistles. It's really all you need. They will try to use kind of scare tactics in a way to try to convince you to get site security and to lock your information away. Really, just go with the free plan. Just anything they offer, just say no thanks, because it is perfectly fine to have that information out there. And matter of fact, sometimes better, because as a marketer, we actually use that free info that most other bloggers who don't realize this actually pay to hide away. We use that in order to get in contact with bloggers when we want to work with them with a client to do a sponsored post. There is benefits to actually having that info on the web. Now, you will also get some spammy emails with that, so we encourage you to have a Gmail account, just a free Gmail account. You can create one for free, where you actually use to sign up for your Bluehost account. And therefore, any emails like that will go to that specific Gmail account. And you can kind of only monitor it sometimes so that any spammy emails you can get rid of, and it won't clog up your original email account. So once you have the web hosting and the domain name purchased through Bluehost, it'll actually have like this one-click install for WordPress. And WordPress is free. I know if you use GoDaddy, they actually try to convince you that you have to pay to get it installed, which is just unbelievable because WordPress is free. You do not need to have pay anyone to set it up. In Bluehost, it's just one click and it's installed. I did want to talk about, though, if you get your domain and your host from two separate locations, like Adrian did with Cleverpedia originally several years ago, you will actually have to point your domain name to your host. In order to do that, go to your domain name provider website, and you'll find something that's called Edit Name Servers. On Hover, that's actually what it's called for domain names. And this is just a little screenshot of what that might look like for you, depending on the company that you went with, even though we highly encourage you to go with Bluehost for both. And with this, you'll just have to put in that ns1.bluehost.com and ns2 name servers, and this is basically pointing your home to where it is on the map. Lastly, we're talking about installing WordPress. Like I mentioned, if you go with Bluehost, it actually just allows you to do a one-click install for your domain name and your hosting once you go through those steps. However, if you do it differently and you end up getting your domain name from someplace else, you will have to go into your cPanel, whether it's through Bluehost for hosting or if you went with a different company for your hosting. Most likely they will have something called a cPanel that's pretty much universal language. And you'll have to click Install WordPress. It'll just go through a few prompts and you'll be able to install WordPress. On your Bluehost, if something happens as you're setting up, of course, we're going to walk you through the steps, so this won't happen if you follow our steps exactly. But if you decide to deviate a little bit and you need to come back to Bluehost and set up your WordPress, you just have to click on the Install WordPress button. And there you go. Congrats, you've got a blog. That's it. That's incredibly easy, right? But, I know, big but, it's not that pretty. So next video, we're going to go through how to customize your blog.